what is now known as a niche capability that Qatar has been practicing successfully for the past good part of 2 decades in negotiation and de-escalatory diplomacy. And Qatar has proven that in the past and brought this to bear this time as well.
The temporary truce between Israel and Hamas is now in its 3rd day. There were a few anxious hours last night when the release of the second group of hostages was delayed. However, just minutes ago, we understand that 14 Israeli hostages and 3 foreign hostages have been transferred to the Red Cross. Another 39 Palestinian prisoners are due to be released. Meanwhile, Hamas says that 5 of its commanders have been killed, including the head of its North Gaza brigade. In a post on X, the Israeli forces have confirmed that the men were targeted before the current temporary ceasefire. Well, joining us now is a real expert in the Qatari role, and it's a really important role that the Qatari authorities have been playing in this conflict and negotiating this temporary ceasefire. I'm delighted to be joined by Nawaf Al-Thani, who is a former Qatari defence attache to the US. He joins me now. Nawaf, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Aisha.
So listen, I just want to sort of start with a really basic question that I think a lot of my listeners will be interested in knowing. Why has Qatar played such an important role? Qatar has been central in a lot of the backroom diplomacy. Why is this the case? What is Qatar's interest here?
Well, Qatar's interest is twofold. The first, obviously, being in the Middle East. It has a national interest to have peace in the region because we're a small country in the region and there is that national interest. The second is the what is now known as a niche capability that Qatar has been practicing successfully for the past good part of 2 decades in negotiation and de-escalatory diplomacy. And Qatar has proven that in the past and brought this to bear this time as well.
Now, the Qatari delegation that landed in Israel, how significant are the meetings that are happening at the moment?
Well, the meetings are happening mainly in Doha. There's a operations center set up in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Doha that deals with the negotiation part of the operation, but it's a two-faced coin. The other one is the humanitarian side. There's also a delegation led by Minister Nawaf Al-Thani. She is an expert in humanitarian operations, and she is in the southern part of Gaza. Today arrived to coordinate humanitarian aid with humanitarian organizations like the International Red Cross and others.
And we understand that a number of Israeli hostages have just been released a few moments ago, 14 yes. Israeli hostages, another 3 foreign hostages. The ceasefire is due to end tomorrow. Do you think that will still happen? Do you think there could be any extension to the ceasefire?
Well, the Qataris are hopeful. The Prime Minister, just a few moments ago, in a news interview, actually with CBS, said we are hopeful if Hamas could at least produce a list of hostages that could be released in the coming days, that the list itself could be presented to the Israelis as somewhat of an assurance or goodwill moving forward. Plus, right now, and I see the number in front of me, we are at 59 released hostages, which is very good. We're beyond the numbers that were expected. It was expected that 50 hostages released in the total of 4 days. At the end of day 3, we're at 59, 44 of them Israeli citizens. So I think we're hopeful. I think the Qataris are hopeful. The signs are there that there could be an extension for the truce.
My producer has just telling me that Benjamin Netanyahu is in the region and he has said that he doesn't think there should be any extension to that ceasefire. Do you think that is the case? Is he sort of now being very tough on this, or do you think there's any scope for movement from his side?
Well, unfortunately, we've heard that rhetoric for a while now. It seems to be the neoconservative line in the Israeli government as it stands. The Israeli government and the Palestinian civilians, more than the Qataris who are mediating, have more to gain by this succeeding. Now, the Qataris have helped with releasing 44 citizens and in total 59 hostages. But, I believe that Benjamin Netanyahu and his government have more to gain by continuing on the road that the Qataris and others like the Egyptians and the Americans have helped lay down to release the rest of the hostages. It's been working so far. I believe it should be continued and given a chance to fully succeed.
Now, Qatar has received a lot of praise for its role in terms of the diplomacy, but it has attracted some criticism as well. Former Israeli President Naftali Bennett criticised some people for praising Qatar, saying, look, at the end of the day, Qatar still supports Hamas. There are many of the leadership of Hamas who live a very comfortable life in Qatar. What would you say to those people saying, on the one hand, yes, you've got praise for doing these negotiations, but you're also letting some of these terrorists sort of live amongst you?
Well, the fact of the matter, that's a very common misconception, unfortunately. Number one, the Hamas political office that is still established in Qatar for the past decade, came about by coordination and request from the United States and the Israelis to alleviate pressure in Israel. It was not a Qatari initiation on its own. It was something done in coordination and by request. Some people have short memories and forget that. However, the National Security Advisor of Israel, I'm guessing knows more about Israel's own security, praised Qatar for that effort. So it's maybe more political wrangling for the local news in Israel. The facts are known. The reason why Qatar has been doing this is known. It's not a Qatari initiative. It's an international initiative that Qatar has proven successful in alleviating pressure from Israel in the past, and today by releasing 59 hostages.
Now let's look to the future. What do you think any kind of successful future looks like? Do you think there is any chance of a two-state solution, and what will the role be for Qatar in the future? Would Qatar be involved having a role actually in Gaza, or would Qatar like to be involved in rebuilding Gaza? What do you think the future looks like?
Well, the future, Qatar has been very clear that a two-state solution, a viable Israeli and Palestinian states in peace, living side by side, should be the end state. Now, that idea obviously is not very popular in the Israeli side at the moment, somewhat understandably, somewhat criticized from others.
However, to be fair, can I just interject? Many leaders in Hamas don't want that either. They want to sort of completely eradicate Israel as well. So you've got two leaderships who don't seem signed up to that.
Well, Qatar's view is clear, at least. I mean, that is the Qatari view, and that is the consensus of the Arab League, the Arab nations, and in fact, every nation in the world agrees upon that. Again, as a nation, the only one who objects to that is Israel. But that's not the important point, unfortunately, speaking right now. Right now, I think Qatar and many in the region are focused on the truce being expanded, that moving towards a second phase of cessation of hostilities, and then assessing the situation on the ground to lay the ground, hopefully, for a two-state solution. But I think the focus right now is rightfully on what is in front of us, which is the truce expanding into more than just the 4 days, and hopefully a cessation of violence moving forward.
Actually, just one other question that's popped into my head. How productive has America been behind the scenes, Antony Blinken and Joe Biden? How useful do you think and helpful do you think they've been?
Well, I'm not having privileged information, obviously. From my experience working in the United States, I believe the US have been extremely helpful. The Qatari government have said that they've been helpful, the Egyptians as well. The US obviously is in a tight spot with an election coming, about in less than a year from now. But I think they've done a lot and should continue to do more to support Qatar and Egypt and others who want to see peace and non-violence as a way to move forward and to end this war, which has claimed, around 15,000 civilians, unfortunately, many of them children as well. It's heartbreaking. I think we should all move forward. Enough killing, and I don't think anyone has the stomach for another forever war.